Well, good morning, sir. You ready to go outside and go to the bathroom? Let's do it. Well, hello, my friends. Welcome back. We are here in Michigan, and today we're gonna do something probably as opposite as yesterday from Iggy Pop as what we could do. Today, we are gonna knock off one of the top things on my bucket list. Since I was a little kid, I have loved Motown music as long as I can remember. My mom used to play the Jackson 5 for me, the Temptations, the Supremes. She didn't like Smokey Robinson, but I do. So today we are going to HITSVILLE, USA. I can't wait. Berry Gordy's house, where it all began. Probably some of the most catchy songs of all time are recorded where we're going today. Daze with Jordan the Lion. HITSVILLE, USA begins now. And there's everyone's best friend. Everyone's best friend. And also, at the wee hours of the early morning, John and I are going to be flying home. So you'll get to see Motown, and then we're out of here. There's our buddy, the Uniroyal tire. Somebody said they have a Ferris wheel inside of there. Interesting. We're getting there, we're getting close. We're in the neighborhood of HITSVILLE, USA. We have arrived. Named after the man who started this beautiful operation. Well, I can't believe I'm finally seeing it for myself, right in front of my own very eyes, where it all happened. Wow, since 1959, that's when Motown started here. Now, to let you know how big of a Motown fan I really am, when I went to New York City when I was in high school, the very first stop I made in New York City was to go to the Motown Cafe, which I don't believe is still there, but this is HITSVILLE, USA. This is where Berry Gordy, well, basically Berry Gordy's story was that he was a lover of music, but he also had to make ends meet. So he got a job working in the automobile factories. And that labor of work that he would do every day would give him plenty of time to think up melodies, think up different songs, and so he decided he wanted to become a songwriter. So he approached a really famous musician from this area named Jackie Wilson, and he got Jackie Wilson to let him write some songs, and he actually wrote many of the hits that Jackie Wilson did, including Lonely Teardrop. Now, what happened was Berry kind of thought from that he would make a lot of money, like he would become overly wealthy, and it didn't really happen. So when he kind of confronted Jackie Wilson's manager saying, like, I think I kind of deserve more of the money, they didn't want to give it to him. So he decided to go off on his own, start writing songs, and try and put together his own thing. Now, one of the first people that he found was the great Smokey Robinson. And Smokey Robinson and Berry Gordy came together, they started working on music, and they did the famous Shop Around song. Now that propelled them from 1959, that got them a slow start, but it took what would be known at the time, Detroit would be known as the Motor City. It would kind of give it the sense that there was something else going on here other than just making automobiles. They were making classic music, or music that would become some of the most classic music of all time. Now, when it really took off was kind of like 1962. Berry would audition different singers that might become affiliated with this label, and one of them was a great songwriter, but he wasn't a real great singer. So Berry made him the A&R man for Motown, which was all in this building at one time, and he put that man in charge of putting together what would become the Funk Brothers. The Funk Brothers were the backing band for all those classic Motown hits. Now, one of the things that Berry was really smart about was that Berry knew from his experience building automobiles, he said, I saw music as being somewhat of a production line, and that you start with the bare bones of things, and then you add little pieces and little pieces, and next thing you know, you have something great. So that's why he had different songwriters. He actually started a finishing school for his artists here, so basically people like the Supremes and the Temptations and people like that who were going to become great performers, he would send them there and they would learn how to look good on stage, how to dance, how to put it all together. Now, some of the most famous people that ever came out of here, obviously Gladys Knight and the Pips, the Jackson 5, Stevie Wonder, well, little Stevie Wonder, the Supremes, even though the Supremes weren't known as the Supremes right away, they were, well, their story is pretty fascinating too. They actually came and auditioned for Berry Gordy, but they were all 16, and Berry Gordy said, they're good, you're good, but I can't take you on. And it was because he said he just saw that having 3 16-year-old girls that were underage could be a problem. So once they finished high school, then he signed them on. But one of the things that he did was they were originally known as the No-Hit Supremes, and so he started looking for ways of making them hits. He was writing their songs, Berry himself originally, but eventually, since nothing was happening, he put some of his best writers, Dozier Holland and Dozier, on them, and they started writing the songs that we would know the Supremes for. Now, the first thing they did was they decided that Diana Ross was going to be the lead singer. That was never really the case before that because all the girls were great singers. But they said, you know, and sorry my hand's shaking, it is freezing out here. They said that Diana Ross just had a different voice, just a more unique voice, and even though the girls didn't like just doing the, you know, backup parts, the ooh baby baby, ooh baby baby, all that kind of stuff, they said they didn't really have a choice. And, you know, Berry knew what he was doing because the hits started coming. So like I said, he saw this as a production line, so he started putting eventually what he would call the sweeteners on. He would take these bare bone songs, he would let the Funk Brothers do the arrangements, and then he would add strings and horns and everything else to really sweeten it up, because what he was trying to do was he was trying to kill this stigma that there was black music. There didn't need to be black music. You could have crossover music, you could have music that was just great music. And so he ended up getting Motown to be one of the first styles of music, if not the first style, to be played on what was considered quote-unquote black radio and white radio. And this became known as kind of the music of the youth of the day. And it, to this day, if I had to choose one kind of music to listen to, hands down, without a doubt, it would be Motown, because it just makes you feel good. The lyrics were simple to remember, but they were great. It was poetic, and just everything about it, the visuals of seeing this. I mean, you had the Four Tops, you had the Temptations, you had classic songs like Reach Out, of course Shop Around. Now, like I said, he took a lot from doing those production lines when he worked there. So one of the things that he did was he was credited with the very first music video. He took the Supremes into the Ford Motor Plant and had them jump on an assembly line, and they filmed them singing right there, Nowhere to Run. And they said that like the workers would be yelling like, get them off the line, we have work to do. But Berry Gordy saw how genius this would be and innovative, and he also decided when he was there, hearing the clanging of sounds and things like that, that he decided to experiment with other sounds. And he would take chains and he would hit chains on different things to get those kind of jingling effects that you would hear on those classic songs. Now, I don't believe they allow photography or anything like that inside, but we will certainly find out. But here you can see they've been memorialized with this this wonderful plaque. It says the Motown sound was created on this site from 1959 to 1972. The company was started with $800 loan from the Savings Club of Bertha and Berry Gordy Sr.'s family, originally called Tamla Records. The company's first national release was Money, That's What I Want, in August 5th, 1959. We know that song. The founder, choosing a name that reflected the Motor City, coined the word Motown for the company that was incorporated as the Motown Record Company Corporation on April 14th, 1960. That same year it produced its first solid gold record, Shop Around, which was Smokey Robinson and the Miracles. In 1968, the company, which had grown from a family-oriented business to an international operation, moved its business operations down the street, which I believe that actual site is gone because they bulldozed it for Super Bowl parking years ago. So when Berry moved in here, what he did was, you can see right up here, I'll take you over there, it says Studio A. This was Studio A. This was the first place that they recorded. Now, the ground floor was basically the business operations in Studio A, where they recorded everything, and it was done like an assembly line, like I said. The studio was in use 22 hours a day, with the only 2 hours it not being used for recording would be from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. because they needed the cleaning crew to come in and reorganize everything and clean up. But Barry would actually live on the second floor up there, and that's also where the A&R department would be. Now when the operation started getting big enough, he opened a Studio B, and then eventually took it to Hollywood, and then he eventually started Motown, which is what a lot of people said was maybe the downfall of the great Motown, was that they started getting into like film and things like that. They got away from what they were great at, which was just great music. Let's go take a closer look. God, I can't believe I'm at HITSVILLE, USA. So cool, man. God, just to think of the classic songs and the classic groups that came out of here. The Supremes, the Temptations, the Four Tops, Stevie Wonder, Gladys Knight and the Pips, the Jackson 5. Now, one of the cool stories that I read was that when Michael Jackson was still alive, he came in here and donated one of his sequin gloves, he donated one of his fedoras, he donated a few things from like the Bad tour. But then a few years ago, I want to say it was like 10 years ago, Sir Paul McCartney came here and he wanted a private tour, and so they gave him a private tour. And when he got to Studio A, he saw the classic 1860s piano that they had in there, that they had recorded all this music on. And he said, "Can I play that piano?" And they said, "Sure." So he sat down, he started playing it, and he found out that it was no longer functionable. It was in such bad shape that he couldn't even play it. So he helped finance the refurbishment of that piano, and he and Berry Gordy used that piano for a television special in 2012. Let's go look at Studio A. I can't wait. Man, I'm so excited to be here. I just can't believe I'm here. Now, Motown became so successful that originally Barry had just bought this house, and then eventually he was able to buy this house as well, and then eventually he owned 6 houses in the neighborhood. So I just went in, bought my ticket to take the tour, and they said that they don't really allow photography or anything for most of the tour, but inside Studio A we do get to. So you guys will get to see that, and that's the big thing we would want to see here anyway. But they did also say that there's a lot of memorabilia inside, and they didn't want to spoil it and tell me what it was, but I'll tell you guys what it is when we come out. And happy holidays. Well, there's our entrance. Check this out, we are in Studio A. This was where everything from, they said 1959 to 1972 was recorded. Stevie Wonder played that on his recordings. He played those drums. They put that sound barrier up to baffle, or to muffle out the sound of the drums. Check this out. This is unbelievable. That piano played on all of those songs. And if you look up here, you can see the Funk Brothers in the pictures. That's so cool. And then they used to have the staff meetings in this room. You can see Diana Ross over here in this photo, recording with Berry Gordy off to the side. How cool is that? Now that's the piano I was mentioning earlier that Paul McCartney came in and played and paid to have refurbished. Isn't that neat? There's the recording, or that's the sound mixing room, and they said that the carpet in there is all worn out on the floor because the engineers would be tapping their foot. And they also said when they would have those staff meetings in here, they would vote on like whether the record was good enough to be released, because Barry was such a control freak as far as like things being perfect, that they said he would have a vote at the end, and he would say, if you were down to your last dollar, would you buy a chili dog or buy this record? And if a majority voted for the chili dog, then the record went back and they worked on it to make it better. This is where all those songs are recorded. Marvin Gaye, Stevie Wonder, Smokey Robinson all would have played that piano. How nuts is that? So cool. Now, one of the cool things about this museum is that from 1972 till now, they've left everything unchanged. Everything. Like Berry Gordy's apartment upstairs is exactly the way it was when they left. They said this sound booth right here would have been for the additional musicians, the string players and stuff. There you can actually see Stevie Wonder right there recording, and you can see that sound booth, the door and everything right there. And then they said this was for the backup singers that did almost all of the recording for all the backing tracks and those records. So my thought, well, when I came in, I said, where did like the Jackson 5 and all these guys, where would they have recorded? What sound booth would they have recorded in? And they said, right here. That's why they said they called this the snake pit, because of those microphones hanging down and everything. And they said it would get really hot. So think of the Jackson 5, the Supremes, the Temptations, the Four Tops, Smokey Robinson and the Miracles, Martha and the Vandellas. They all would have recorded in this studio. And they said that Berry Gordy Sr.'s father, or Berry Gordy Jr.'s father, Berry Gordy Sr., actually was responsible for designing the walls in here to cut out the sound. So there you go. We are in the room, unbelievably, where Motown, the magic of Motown, was born. Now that was pretty much the end of our tour, so I'm going to take you guys outside and I'm going to show you all the houses that used to be part of Motown before they moved into the big building. This truly was a dream come true. My Girl, My Guy, all those songs, they all would have been recorded in here. Man. And what's cool is when you walk in the front door of HITSVILLE USA, they have, that's where the lobby where the receptionist would have been. And that is all still unchanged as well since 1972. And when you look at the login or the register for who the client was that day, right there written on the paper is Jackson 5. So we are going to head out of here, unfortunately. Man, this is so cool. Their headphones, all their musical instrument cables. Of course, Diana Ross recording in here. Look at that. They also said when they had those staff meetings, if you were even a minute late, that door was closed and you didn't get to enter. Wow. Just looking at the floor, I mean, to think everybody that plays music taps their foot, they do something, just to think of how many musicians would have been recording classic hit songs tapping their foot on this hardwood floor. Man. Big shout out, thank you to the Motown Museum for making this available. This was actually Berry Gordy's sister who they said one day looked out the window and saw like a ton of people out visiting this property and said, we have to make this a museum. So it's actually thanks to her. In the mid-'80s she did that. And it's here for everyone to see. Now what you missed, what I couldn't show you, was they have a gallery room and every couple of months there's a different display for a different artist. So right now it's the Four Tops. They have some of their outfits up there, a whole history of the Four Tops, and they also have Michael Jackson's sequin glove and fedora with his name inside of it. So come to the Motown Museum. You will not be disappointed. By the way, they loved my bag inside. As soon as they saw it, they were like, that is awesome. Where'd you find that? I said, Sweden. So now we're back out front. HITSVILLE USA. That was so cool. Like I said, second floor was Berry Gordy's apartment. And then the ground floor was Studio A. So now let's take a little bit of a walk, because the next three houses, they actually said that one of the houses burned down because it was originally these two, another one, and then these three as well. And he would buy up these houses as the business became more successful, because he wanted to put the sales department in one, various different things, various operational parts of the business in each house. Now they said the White House right here was called the Money House, and they said this is where the artists would come to pick up their royalty checks, and they would also come if they were going on tour or whatever and they need their tour support money. That's where they would pick up their tour support money. So one time, if you worked for Motown, you would have just had to walk down this little sidewalk to go to any of the other functions in the business. Now they did have one other house, and it was actually across the street. Let's go over there and I'll show you what it was. Now right here where this sorority headquarters is, the Gamma Phi Delta, this was also the only building in Motown that wasn't on that side of the street, and this was the finishing school I told you about. This is where they were brought, all the artists were brought to be taught how to dress, how to dance, how to look when you sing. And what they would say is, they said, you know, a lot of the artists would say, we don't care about this stuff, we just want to make hit records. And they would tell them, no, in the long run, you're going to be meeting kings and queens and royalty, and you have to be and look your best. And so this is where they would have done that. Now when Motown finally moved out of here, they took over a giant building, and that building is now gone. They actually tore it down. And if you're wondering where it was and you live in Michigan, where the Little Caesars Arena is, that's where that building was. They said it hadn't been used in a long time, and they pretty much left it when Barry moved the whole operation out to Los Angeles, which is where he still lives to this day. And they had a picture, they had a bunch of posters inside of different movies and different things that Motown was affiliated with. The Last Dragon was one of those, as well as Lady Sings the Blues, where Diana Ross played Billie Holiday. All kinds of different things that they had their hands in, but you can never take away the greatness of the music here. And I'm going to try and find some old photos of the artists standing out in front of here. And if you can believe it, when Barry started this, and it was Tamla Records at first, because it was, before it was Motown, it was called Tamla. Then he tried to change the name because he wanted it to reflect the city, and it was going to be called, I believe, Motor Records or Motortown Records. And it just didn't have a nice ring to it, so it became Motown. But when he moved in here, you're wondering, when did he put Hitsville up? Right then. When he moved in here, HITSVILLE U.S.A. went up there. He wanted to let people know where they were and what was happening in there. So many classic recordings, it's almost unbelievable. And so, like I said, inside, when you would have walked in for your recording session, if you're one of those artists, you would have walked in straight through this door, and immediately there would have been a left, and that would have been the, actually right behind where this display is, that's where the secretary's office was, where you would have checked in. They had a few couches and everything in there, and the tour guide said, yes, Michael Jackson, a young Michael Jackson, young Stevie Wonder would have sat on those couches. So, man, I loved being here. Now, like I said, they don't allow photos inside except for Studio A, so it's totally worth your time. It's like 15 bucks to tour the place. But like I said, it's all trapped in time. They basically kept every single thing the way it was in 1972. And since it's a Michigan historical site, it can never ever be torn down or taken away. HITSVILLE USA will always live on. One of the things that I loved most about coming here and learning from the tour was that they said Barry never saw color. He never believed in like black, white, any of that stuff, but he knew that the media, and he knew that like the sales of things could be affected. So when he first started out, he wouldn't put the artists on the cover of the albums. He would have some nondescript art so that you had to appreciate the music for what it was. But they said he would hire black, white, any race, anyone that was good at the job. And they said that he also believed in nurturing creativity. He was not somebody that came in and told you how things were going to be done. He wanted you to bring out your natural creativity, put it in the mix, like I said, like kind of an assembly line, and with all these different parts, in the end, it would come out with the beauty that was Motown. I said it was Dozier, Holland, and Dozier. Reverse that. It was Holland, Dozier, and Holland were the songwriters. And now we are leaving Motown, HITSVILLE, USA. Now I'm gonna go home and hang out with John until my brother gets home. We're gonna hang out with him for a little bit and then head to the airport.
I'm guessing he missed me. Look at where he's sitting, right above my head. Yep, Ja, you missed out on the Motown Museum. I'm sorry. Next time. Next time. Well, I always like to support businesses that I go to, so I picked up a few postcards, a shirt for myself, and a few other things for some other people that will be surprised with it in the future. It's a little pricey. It was 30 bucks for a t-shirt, but you know, you only get to go to Motown so many times in your life, see where history was made, and it was totally worth it for me. His buddy's home, so he's playing with Seth. Look at him. Are you wrestling? Are you wrestling, Ja? That's the Ja I know, rolling around on his back, letting you scratch his belly. Get him, Ja! Alright gang, we're on our way out of here. We're headed to the airport. We're going to turn in the rental car. And not a moment too soon either. Ja's jacket zipper completely broke, so we're going to throw away his jacket. Well, we're here dropping off the car, and I got to tell you, this is the worst car rental place I've ever went to. Do not use executive car rental. I booked a full-size car. When I got here, they didn't have one, so instead of giving me a free upgrade, they gave me a free downgrade, charged me the same for the full-size car, and told me if I wanted an upgrade, I could pay for the upgrade. Never heard that before. Then as I was driving, found out there was no windshield wiper fluid. The windshield wipers were bad. When I called them, they didn't care, and when I looked at their reviews online, all the reviews were bad. All right. Well, we're through security, and since it's a night flight, we're gonna end it here. What do you say, Ja? All right, my friends, we are gonna call it a night. Well, whatever it is, middle of the night. Thank you, Holly Griffiths and Peter Angelopoulos, for making contributions to my channel. And when you see us tomorrow, we will be back in Los Angeles. Have a great night and goodbye.